Yellowstone has finally returned after almost 2 years with Season 5 Episode 9, and I was wondering how they were going to deal with the whole Kevin Costner situation. And boy, they went in big with it. John Dutton III is no more, and within this opening episode we saw that he was killed off, but it was made out like he did it himself. However, things aren't as they seem. This season looks like it's set to be about finding out the truth of what happened to John Dutton, the change in the world which is seeing the world of cowboys disappear, and the breaking up of the Dutton legacy that's been standing within Montana since 1883. So with that, let's dive into the episode, answer all of the important questions, and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Yellowstone Season 5 Episode 9, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. John Dutton's death. Well, John Dutton III is no more. When this episode opened up, we saw that his lifeless body was found on the floor in the bathroom, and it looked like he'd ended things for himself. I thought the entire season was going to be focused around finding out who it was that killed him, because, like Sarah even mentioned, John Dutton didn't seem like he was in a situation where he'd end things for himself, even with the fact that he was being impeached. He was somebody that would walk into the battle and fight with everything that he had, so there were suspicions from the off, and that's something that Beth even felt when she found out that her father had died. During the episode, we saw that Sarah was actually the person that was responsible for the death of John Dutton. She went to an agency with the intention of hiring somebody to take him out. Jamie gave the all clear on doing it prior to her going, but he thought she was speaking hypothetically. Hence why he was in tears when he arrived back at his own home following him having to make the announcement that his father was dead. Sarah said the line, "Lions don't die of old age. Lions die in the jaws of a younger lion." And in this instance, she was referring to Jamie being the younger lion and John Dutton being the one that died. The funny thing is, Jamie most definitely isn't the younger lion. He's a weak individual and he signed off on his father's killing without even realizing. Sarah wants Jamie to become governor so that he can sign off on market equities, pretty much taking over the land that John Dutton was refusing to hand over. So I'm imagining if that does end up happening, then things are going to look even more suspicious between the pair. This season is definitely going to be about the investigation that's going to be taking place around John Dutton's death and the truth eventually being uncovered. Jamie and Sarah's relationship is probably going to start to fall apart too, and that in turn will make things even more dangerous for Jamie. The importance of Rip's time in Texas. Rip's time in Texas was a part of the episode that was really symbolic of the changing times and how things were changing for the worse in his eyes. We saw him holding on to cowboy traditions such as sleeping in the teepee rather than an outhouse, riding his horse rather than a truck around the land, and also finding clappers that were all in one piece, something which wasn't seen as much these days. He also said about how the land was being taken and that in 30 years, instead of the beauty of nature and wildlife, there would be high-rise buildings and hotels in its place. You could also argue that the conversations that were taking place when they used terms such as disabled and gay was telling of how times had changed too, because it was said how you couldn't use those words in the context it was being used in, like once upon a time it was. Rip is a traditionalist and he's a cowboy through and through, so him being in Texas and seeing how different things were to how they were done in Montana, it was showing him that times were changing and the industry itself was getting into a state where it was struggling. He also said things like cowboys might not be around for much longer, and how there was only one left of a legendary breed of cowboy still standing. So it was shining a light on the fact that cowboys like him were a dying breed, and he was fearful over the state of the industry and the way that it worked. John Dutton dying is something that ties into that, because Rip looked up to John, and he put him on a pedestal of being this legendary figure and part of a previous generation that you wouldn't find in the present day. With the news of John being dead, Rip went back to the Yellowstone ranch to be with his wife Beth, and I think we're also going to be seeing him struggling with the death of John, but comforting his wife in the process. I imagine he's going to be the one dealing with market equities and the loss of land, as everything that we saw in Texas felt like his mindset was set on preservation, and market equities don't want that at all. Jamie and Beth. Jamie and Beth's sibling rivalry is one for the ages. The moment that Beth found out that her father was dead, she instantly blamed her brother without needing any evidence, even with Kayce not agreeing with her. This is because he was pretty much leading the impeachment against him and knew that he wanted to be stood in his place. We didn't see much of Beth in this episode other than when she was in a state of mourning. But one thing that's going to be crucial to the story is the fact that she said that she was going to kill Jamie. When Beth says something, she means it, and I think she'll most definitely go out and look to get revenge for what happened to her father. She's always been a daddy's girl, and with him being killed, she's going to be heartbroken and acting on impulse and rage. John Dutton was always able to give her a sense of direction when it was needed, so with Rip back, he's going to have to do his best to help her through this state of grief. Jamie was crying and was riddled with guilt over the fact that he was indirectly responsible, so I think we're going to see that guilt start to develop more and more throughout the season, and his involvement will come out in some kind of way. Kayce and Monica. It very much feels like Kayce is going to be stepping into that John Dutton type role following his father's death. The tear that he had down his face when he saw his father was something that was really powerful and tapped into the emotion that was present. There was a strength in the character that I hadn't really seen before. We saw that Kayce and Monica were going to be moving into a new home, but something that was interesting was whilst Monica was looking around the house, Kayce was standing on the porch and there was a lone wolf that was staring at him. Wolves are said to be symbolic of loyalty, family, wisdom, and power. And I think that is probably telling of the direction of Kayce's arc in this season of the show, as he looks set to ascend the position that his father once held in the family. My review of the episode. I thought this was a great first episode of Season 5 Part 2 of Yellowstone. I've really missed the show, and in anticipation I've been rewatching 1883 just to immerse myself back in the world. Killing off John Dutton was a bold move, and I was interested to see how Taylor Sheridan was going to handle the whole Kevin Costner situation. And personally, I don't think he could have done it any better. The uncovering of the fact that John was murdered is going to be something that's interesting to follow. Obviously, the organization made it look convincing with the power going out, which meant that there was no video footage recorded in the house, and there also being residue on John's hands. But Jamie being a weak link is what I think will be the catalyst of the truth coming out. Beth Dutton is such an interesting character, and seeing her on screen again for the first time in a couple of years was so refreshing. The power, confidence, and loyalty that she holds is incomparable to any other character, and with that comes humor as well. I really enjoyed watching Rip in Texas in the episode because you could see the fear that was in his eyes about the fact that times were changing. He clearly wants to hold on to the values that made cowboys back in the day the cowboys that are now dying out. So it's going to be interesting seeing him navigating that space and coming to terms with the direction of the industry. I feared that Kevin Costner leaving the show could have had the potential to kill it, but I think this murder has added an element of freshness into the show that I didn't even realize it needed. I'm already looking forward to next week's episode, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. So, there you have it. Yellowstone Season 5 Episode 9, Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on Yellowstone, then click on the card in the top corner. There's an entire playlist there where I break down every episode. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.